just a little bit caught in the middle. Life is a maze, love is a riddle. I don't know where to go, can't do it alone. I tried, and I don't know why. I'm just a little girl lost in the moment. I'm so scared, I don't show it. I can't figure it out, bringing me down. I know I got to let it go and just enjoy the show.
Woo! You see, that magic of that song is enough to make you turn down $12.5 million right now, and we're going to explain why.
That is true and a good intro.
However, there is a small caveat to that. It can only be if a precious young girl sings that song. If three just terrible singing teenagers try to perform it for you,
good.
all it does is make you click off the YouTube video.
One teenager, two adults.
That is true. That is true. That was a generalization. Asterisk. So, without further ado, you have heard the song. You see Brad Pitt's beautiful face. We are reviewing Moneyball. I must admit, this is the farthest we have ever stretched our historical genre.
We're gonna have to.
It is. Yeah, go ahead and say what you're gonna say.
This is historical in the strictest sense possible.
know.
Because it's recent.
I think our channel is all about the movies that are about things that really happened. And in this sense, this is certainly.
That's what history is.
This is a biographical sports drama. That's what it is.
That's true.
I mean, like when you think of history, you think of like 1,000 years ago. Like this is just as important history. It's just more recent.
Speaking of, Noah is back with us.
And he has different colored hair.
Is that the whole high school baseball bleach your hair thing?
Yeah, it is.
All right.
Especially for my team. They all went through it.
I know.
Shut up. I was still talking.
I know you. I know what you're thinking. How on earth, Nate, can your dumb idiot brother be qualified to speak on anything? I thought that he.
Oh, and y'all are super qualified.
I thought
unpaid movie
critic.
Show your shirt.
Unpaid movie critic.
Yeah, but I thought that you only brought on guests who were experts, but joke's on you. Because Noah actually
played for the Atlanta Braves.
Because Noah actually
the youngest MLB player ever.
We brought in John Michael, the political guru, to talk about JFK. What else? What other experts?
Gavin's come on for Greek epics.
The classics major, to talk about Greek epics, and now we brought Noah, the baseball player, to talk about Moneyball. Noah, give us a little overview of what you think of baseball and your experience.
It's not a very good sport.
What?
I'm joking. It's a great sport, and this is a great movie. There's not a lot of really notable baseball movies out there because maybe baseball kind of has a reputation of being a slower sport, maybe not as entertaining. But I think that's just because people don't focus on the exciting parts of it, and this movie really focuses on
we will be getting
the exciting parts of it, and so it really shows the beauty of baseball, and it's a great movie. Even if you don't watch baseball or even like baseball, it's still a great movie. You can still appreciate it. It's done really well.
How can you not be romantic about baseball?
Exactly. I will say,
oh man.
The only reason that I watch or participate in baseball is because of Noah. Like, I'm not a fan of baseball.
He didn't know half of the MLT.
Here's the thing. Despite that, this movie is one of the great all-time movies.
Yeah, it is.
This is the best sports movie.
Yes.
And I don't even like the sport. That's how good this movie is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just on another level.
Yeah, and there's different reasons it's that good. Partially is this man, Brad Pitt. Which is a big reason, because the entire movie is about him. Like, he is on screen every single scene. I'm trying to think, is there a scene where he's not? Maybe like while they're playing baseball.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, he's literally on screen the entire time. Also, I'm sure we're going to talk about it a lot, but the dialogue is just beautiful.
Before, we got to hit the specs. John, hit the specs.
No, we're doing some plot summary first.
Plot summary first.
Gotcha. Alright, so this movie, called Moneyball, if we didn't already say the name of it. Yep.
Yeah, we forgot to say that.
Yeah, I didn't. This movie, we are reviewing Moneyball today, and or tonight. It's about 11:26 Eastern Standard Time. So this movie, Moneyball, is a true story. It centers around a guy named Billy Bean. Sounds like a name out of like a cartoon. That's actually his name, Billy Bean, William Bean.
Sounds like a fake name.
Yeah, William Bean goes by Billy. Billy Bean.
Billy Beane is the general manager for the Oakland Athletics in the early 2000s. Like 2002 is when this movie takes place. And he's the general manager. The Oakland A's are a small budget team, the poorest team in the MLB. Or as he says, poor, then there's 50 feet of crap, and then there's the Oakland A's. So they're really poor.
So aptly put.
At the beginning of the movie, we get this little statistic that the Yankees, who they play in the division series, and the year before the movie takes place, they had a $39 million cap, while the Yankees had like a $114 million budget for paying players. And so he's faced with this challenge of managing one of the poorer MLB teams. And one day he meets this guy named Peter Brand, who's like this small time analyst, kind of, you wouldn't really stand out in the crowd or anything, and
has no baseball experience.
And Peter Brand, he's working for like the Indians, and he shares this knowledge with Billy about how he believes the game is misunderstood and how analytics are not used as they should, that players are not evaluated properly, and he just introduces Billy to this like new way of viewing baseball and viewing how to assemble a team, and it particularly appeals to Billy because he's faced with all these challenges already. And this method of assembling a team based on analytics and based on data and based on big part of this on base percentage and just these little statistics that people don't often think about. He views this as a way that he could build a team, and like so he decides to test it out, and he does. He hires Peter Brand, and they use this strategy to put together the 2002 Oakland Athletics team, and so then the season begins, and that's kind of what this movie is about. It's about the journey of the season and all of the conflicts that arise between people within the clubhouse. A lot of the conflicts involve the manager, Art Howe. He doesn't like how Billy Beane's decided to assemble the team, and there's a lot of other inner conflicts. It deals a lot with Billy Beane's personal life, with his daughter and his wife, and his ex-wife. So that's kind of what this movie is about.
And I will tell you, you will not expect the ending.
Yeah. Unless you don't know.
Unless you know history.
Because
Because the crazy thing about everything John just said is 100% real. Like,
Yeah.
all that really happened.
Yeah.
Baseball was looked at as from a standpoint of who's the best players, and Billy Beane said what if we looked at it from a different perspective.
A big part of the strategy that I didn't mention is really the Peter Brand believes that, and eventually Billy believed that there's players out there that are undervalued, and that they can, if they can assemble a team of these undervalued players, as he says, in the aggregate, they can recreate these $7.5 million players that they lose from the year before, like Giambi and Isringhausen and Damon are the three big ones they talk about. Anyway, so we'll talk more about the plot of this movie as we go on. We'll do some specs. All right, so this movie was released in the grand old year of 2011. What you were 6? I mean, you were 6, and you were what? 4? Yeah. All right, you were a young boy.
Probably
a young toddler.
Probably not old enough to enjoy this movie.
Yeah. It came out in 2011. It was directed by. I was the only one who directed this movie. Bennett Miller directed this movie. He's only done, I think, 3 movies. Wow. This is the middle one.
He needs to do more.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I have seen one of them.
What are the other movies?
His movie. The other one I've seen was his first one called Capote. It's about the pretty famous author named Truman Capote, and it's a good movie. It actually stars Philip Seymour Hoffman, who played Art Howe in this movie, and it's a good movie. But this was his second kind of big feature directorial debut. I think he was like he directed a lot of commercials and music videos and such, and he still does a lot of that. And he directed one other movie called Foxcatcher that I have not seen, but it was after this. Anyway, Bennett Miller though was helmed this movie.
What I want to know is who was the freaking screenwriter?
The screenwriters for this movie were 2 of the best. Well, first of all, the screenplay was by Steven Zalian and Aaron Sorkin, and the story was by a guy named Stan Chervin. And the screenplay was based on a book called Moneyball, The Art of Winning an Unfair Game by Michael Lewis. Michael Lewis, by the way, he's written several books that have been made into movies by not nonfiction books that have been made into movies. I don't know if y'all have seen The Blind Side, but he wrote the book that was based on, and he's written another good movie is The Big Short that's based on a book he wrote.
Yeah.
But anyway, this movie is based on a book by Michael Lewis, a nonfiction book. Yeah, so the screenplay, the two primary screenwriters were Steven Zalian and Aaron Sorkin. Now I'll give my little spiel about what I know about him. So. Yeah, Aaron Sorkin is like one of the top screenwriters like in Hollywood. Like this guy writes like some of the most like punchy dialogue and like some of the best as you see in this movie. And we'll talk about it here in a minute. But he's known for just the amazing dialogue. And he's written other movies such as A Few Good Men, which I think was based on a play that he originally wrote. Yeah. And then he wrote another big one is The Social Network about the creation of Facebook, which also has some of the best dialogue I've ever seen in a movie. But and then Steven Zalian is also a very well-known screenwriter. Wrote like Schindler's List, and he's written a bunch of well-known, big-budget big movies that have very good dialogue and are very well written. And then but apparently the story they did not write the story for it. The story was written by a guy named Stan Chervin. So when we have the big guys, we all need to give our give a little bit of respect to Stan Chervin, right? Good job, Stan.
Good job, Stan.
It wouldn't have been and Michael Lewis. We got Michael Lewis. We would not be here without your book.
Wait, but what'd they do? What'd they do?
What did they do?
Yeah.
What do you mean do?
Like, what'd they do? Why are we congratulating these people?
Because they wrote this movie.
Wait, they wrote the movie?
Yes.
Wait, the screenplay?
Yes.
Okay.
The screenplay.
Alright.
Aaron Sorkin and Steven Zalian wrote the screenplay.
Right.
The story was written by Stan Chervin based on the book. So yeah, I think that's what that
was lost.
Wait. Then why were we just talking about the other guy who wrote the guy?
The other so.
Shh, it's okay, Noah.
All right, to clarify, since
understand.
even Noah got confused, the screenplay was by these two screenwriters named Aaron Sorkin and Steven Zalian. The story of the movie was written by a guy named Stan Chervin, and it was all based on a book called Moneyball. Okay, yeah, by a guy named Michael Lewis. Is that you figured it out? Okay, cool.
Got it.
And now we can applaud all these guys.
Now that we understand.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, I was just wanting to mention the unsung hero, Stan Chervin, because we know about these other two guys but that guy, hey man, he wrote the story for it. There would have been nothing without him, And so yeah. All right, so this movie, moving on with specs, was produced by Michael DeLuca, Rachel Horowitz, and Brad Pitt, of course. Produced this movie as well. He double dipped. It stars, of course, Brad Pitt in the main role. Co-starring are Jonah Hill and Philip Seymour Hoffman. Jonah Hill, and Chris Pratt pops up in this movie.
Pratt,
I don't know if you could say he's a star in the movie, but he's definitely a supporting
I don't know.
actor.
He does so good.
He's a star.
He's good.
He's a star now.
Anyway, but yeah, so Brad Pitt's certainly the star, and then Jonah Hill and Philip Seymour Hoffman are in. Jonah Hill plays Peter Brand. Philip Seymour Hoffman plays Art Howe, the manager of the team. And we need to have a little 5-second moment of silence for Philip Seymour Hoffman, who died about 10 or 11 years ago. All right, we love you, Philip Seymour.
It's like 1 second.
We're just glad that your name wasn't Philip Seymour Butts. Thank you that was not the case.
Actually,
you're a great actor. I think
Seymour, there could be so many dynamics.
I know, yeah. I think, but he is one of the great. We'll talk about his acting in this movie, but I think he's one of the best actors of the century for sure. It's really a shame that he died. But what? I think he had like a drug overdose or something.
That's right.
Because he did the Hunger Games movies. He's in those, and I think he died before the last one came out. So cinematography in this movie was by a guy named Wally Pfister. And fun fact, he was the guy who did the cinematography for the Dark Knight trilogy and Inception. And Memento. I'm not kidding. That actually is true.
Whoa, this guy is
this guy's obviously friends with Christopher Nolan. And for that, we applaud him.
All right, and this movie was edited by the magnificent Christopher Tellefson, which the editing in this movie is solid. The editing in this movie is solid.
It is pretty good.
And the music is by Michael Dana. And the music is also solid.
Music is underrated.
Yeah,
whenever I complain about something dumb in a movie, you'll know this, John. I'm always like, how did this get by the editors?
Yeah.
Nothing got by this editor.
Also, I want to point out really quickly that whenever you think of good music in a movie, you think, oh wow, there was a lot of good music.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of good use of not music. Usually there's so much music in a movie, but there's long stretches of this movie there's no music in it.
It adds to the realism.
It adds to the realistic feel.
We'll save a little bit of that though first. We don't get too ahead of ourselves. The production companies were Columbia Pictures, Scott Rudin Productions, Michael DeLuca Productions, Rachel Horowitz Productions, and then Brad Pitt Company, Plan B Entertainment. It was distributed by Sony Pictures. It was released, as I said, in 2011, September 9th, and then it went wide on September 23rd. It runs just over 2 hours, 13 minutes over, 133 minutes, which is perfect running time, not too long, not too short.
Yep, it's just getting to where it should end.
This was an American production, and it's with its primary language being, of course, English, and it had a pretty big budget, $50 million. Not massive, but for this type of movie, it was pretty big.
Yeah, for that type of movie, that's big. Cause
and it made $110.2 million. So it made more back than double its budget. Anyway, so that's kind of the specs for this movie. So I guess now we can finally get into our positives. And I think we have to.
Yeah, I know. Noah, we gotta hear your thoughts.
We gotta let Noah go first. What's your biggest positive?
So
we have to
many
separate.
positives.
We have to put them into tiers.
That's hard to do, but to compartmentalize these good parts of this movie, I think number one, and even putting aside like it's a great baseball movie, great sports movie, the best part of this movie isn't even about that. The best part of this movie is the dialogue is so realistic.
Aaron Sorkin is
and not only the dialogue, but how people act.
Yeah.
Like the way, and there's no other way to describe it because I've never seen a movie like this where like you feel like you're that you're a fly on the wall in real conversations that are just happening, and you just happen to be there watching.
Yeah.
And there's like, I mean, kudos to all the actors, because if one of them would have messed it up, it would have taken away from the feel. Because there's nothing they could have written to make them act like that. Everybody just kind of got the idea of the movie. You know, I feel like everybody understood where they were going with the movie, and just everybody adds to it in their own way by acting in a way that's so realistic, and that's the most entertaining part of the movie is watching everybody act in this really cool drama, you know, in a way that's so relatable and realistic. You know, it just makes everything very believable.
And I think it goes a really good way. The dialogue enables them to do that. Because it's not like, a lot of the dialogue isn't like flashy dialogue. It's just this basic, like what they would really be saying.
Exactly.
And that is what Aaron Sorkin, what sets him apart. He's known for writing dialogue that feels naturalistic.
It's so natural. Like, everything that happens in your everyday conversations, like, you will find it that happened in this movie. You know, just like...
Sometimes I feel like movies break for a little bit what people would actually say for dramatic purposes, and everybody understands that and, you know, goes with it, but you do have to, like, it is in your head, you're like, oh, well, you know, this wouldn't actually happen like this. That never happens in this movie. Like, there's even a part where Brad Pitt is going to give them, like, a motivational speech. And, you know, this is the moment in most sports movies, you know, music would start playing and, you know, he would start, and it would be this dramatic thing. In this movie, it's how a GM would actually talk to professional baseball players. You know, he goes in, says a few encouraging and true words, you know, and then it's like, all right, let's go play.
He's basically like, you're not a very good team.
Or like, you may not look like a good team, but you're a good team. And then he just like, and it's so realistic, you know, and stuff like that.
I love Chris Pratt's expression after that speech.
He's just like, all right.
Yeah, it's great.
So my first positive is the dialogue and acting.
Well, what's so cool about that is that in the wrong hands, that approach could have been so disastrous. Because as no one hints that, there's a good reason that this isn't normally done in movies.
Yeah.
And it's that normal conversation does not translate well to the big screen. People are stumbling over each other. People say extra words. People say things they don't mean. People mumble a lot, like Noah. People just trip over little rugs, as we saw.
That did happen. I noticed that especially this time, and I appreciate
But
that.
somehow they manage to get all of the positives and none of the negatives of that approach, and it's just like magic.
No, I think in addition to the screenwriters and directors and actors, we have to obviously commend the director, because I mean he has to set. He's the one that's in charge of setting up the tone of the movie and setting up these scenes and like guiding the director. He's guiding the actors.
He's the one saying this is going to be the feel of the movie.
Yeah. And keeping it that way.
Let's keep it this way and get it. Because if everybody wasn't on board with that, I feel like everybody was really had the same idea.
But like consistency, the tone, not just the tone of the movie, but just like everything about this movie is consistent.
That's
and
true.
like anyway, and just like I mean, I guess I'll go ahead and go on with one. This will be
my first positive.
Was dialogue and acting. Oh, you mean? Go ahead. Yeah. See, that'll be my first. That'll actually be my first big positive. Actually, will be the consistency. In multiple facets. The tone of this movie is so consistent. It's never, like Noah said, it never goes off to just do a random cheesy like big speech.
No.
It sticks with that realistic tone and that just like daily conversation vibe, and just like it doesn't ever go from being naturalistic like it's supposed to, like it's intended to be, to being like all flashy and stuff, because it doesn't need to do that. Like it's set up so well, and you're engaged with these characters so much that it works. And the realism is one of the best parts. This is kind of my positive here, is kind of the realism and the consistency in these different areas. Realism, the consistency was amazing. The consistency in the tone was amazing. It has this kind of, it's never really a big like joyful tone or anything. It's just kind of this like we're going to work type of deal. They're all working in this job that's pretty cutthroat. Trying to win baseball games and assembling teams, cutting players, and it keeps that tone of just like
it's hard to describe.
It has a baseball tone.
Yeah,
it feels like
it has a baseball tone.
The scenes that are in the clubhouse feel like you're in Major League Baseball clubhouse. People just walking by each other and just bumping into each other, and sometimes when they don't like each other, they just don't look at each other and stuff.
You'll understand what John's talking about if you watch the movie, because
Yeah.
it has this baseball tone and it maintains it throughout the movie. Just like he's saying, like you feel like you're in the clubhouse. It is realistic. That is how these people act.
So there's kind of a double whammy for you. Tone is great and stays consistent throughout the movie, and the realism in this movie is unparalleled in any sports movie for sure, and any movie in general. I mean, it's up there. So, all right, Nate.
Well, I'd actually like to bounce back to Noah real
sure.
quick, because what I think how do I want to put this? So, like, I feel like when you watch this movie, there's certain things with your baseball experience that vibe with you, and that just kind of comes as a given. But our audience doesn't know about these things. So, do you want to kind of expound on that? Because I'd be really interested to hear.
Yeah, like Nate was saying, this movie is amazing. Even if you do not watch baseball, you don't have to know a thing about baseball. It's going to be a great movie. But having said that, some of it will go over your head. There's a lot of good parts of this movie that won't be appreciated if you don't understand baseball, which is fine. It's made for everybody. It's not made where these points are crucial parts. But when you understand these parts, it's really exciting. First of all, they use a lot of baseball terms, especially to do with more like the behind the scenes of baseball.
Yeah.
And like averages and statistics and different things to do with players, which is more used by scouts and people, and this can make you appreciate it because you understand kind of the whole concept of the movie, which is, hey, instead of looking at baseball from a personal perspective, let's look at it from a statistical standpoint. And if you don't understand the statistics, it gets a little bit lost, but it's all right. And then the other thing is, you get to appreciate just it goes to multiple different baseball parks, which is really cool. A lot of different managers. You get to see different organizations, which is really cool. Yeah. But and then also one last thing is, all of this is really happened, and it has clips from the actual 2003 Oakland A's.
2002, I think.
Spliced into the movie, and it works really well. So I would say all that, but from a baseball standpoint, the movie understands baseball. I think that's what I appreciate the most. The movie understands baseball. There's never a point where they say anything that you're like, as a baseball player, you're like, that's dumb. Why did he say it like that? The reasons they use, there's trading scenes where, I would say
I wanted you to comment on that.
I'd say it's more advanced. If you don't know baseball, you're going to be lost.
I had no idea.
I feel like I'm finishing what you're saying. I'm going to comment on that as maybe a nitpick or something that might throw people off this movie. So I'm going to talk about it more in my negative section. There's the idea that there are some parts of the movie that will go over people's heads.
That's a part where if you haven't watched baseball, you're going to have to sit back in your chair and be like, this is cool, but I don't really understand what's happening. Yeah. If you do understand baseball, it's awesome. It's awesome. And then you can really kind of get into it. It intensifies, like, well, he just traded that person. He's a rookie of the year and he's about to be an all-star, and they have no like bright spots on their team, and he just traded him. And you're like, normally you'd be like, oh well, he traded that guy.
Well, see, if you don't know baseball, you didn't understand what Noah just said.
That's what I'm saying.
So y'all want to save that for the negative and talk about that?
Sure, we'll talk about that more.
So we're in the positive section.
Negative.
From a baseball
kind of aspect. From a baseball standpoint. But Nate, go ahead and give us.
Yeah,
your
Nate, what's your
positive.
first
Positive.
I know you like this movie,
I mean, I love this movie, and y'all scooped up a lot of the good ones. I mean, acting is up
Oh,
there.
I'm not done.
There
Scoop is still here.
There is not a movie with better acting than Moneyball.
I don't think there is.
There is no movie. When it comes to acting, there is no greater.
It's up there for sure. I mean,
Yeah,
I'd have to
Moneyball.
think about other movies,
I
but it's
would
definitely up
As
there.
John said, it's consistent across the board. Not only does it's not like Brad Pitt carries this, although he does.
I mean, he does, but he doesn't.
But everyone is so good.
Yeah.
From
Collective acting, I think you'd have to put it up there for sure.
Like it's just
Can you name one person in the movie you're like, he did a bad job?
there's not a single person who did a bad job acting.
Well, tell us why you like the
Compare this to the acting of Alexander. You would never dare
That's
speak as you speak to me now.
Oh, do I need to do it? Do I need to do it one more time? Hold on,
Go do it.
Hold on, what's the one? Alexander, be reasonable! Anyway, all right. No, but Phil, tell us why the acting is so good in your opinion.
It's not even
you
acting.
can
It's
articulate
it's just
it.
like having normal
Yeah.
interactions.
Yeah.
They're not even acting. It's like,
Which that's
the
what acting
hallmark
is.
of good acting is when you can't tell
Yeah.
they're acting.
Yeah.
You can't tell they're acting. I don't know, I guess I'll just leave it there. Here's something that you touched on a little bit, but I'll expound upon as my first positive. I love the soundtrack in this movie.
Interesting.
I love the soundtrack in this movie. Noah said that there's parts of it that are silent, and I was sitting and I was thinking about some nitpicks I might have, and I was thinking maybe I can rant a little bit on how it's quiet. But as the movie went on, I realized no, this is good.
Is
Like
indeed.
it needs to be this way. It doesn't overcrowd it with music, and when it does, it's simple but moving.
Yes, it is.
And that's
Yeah.
the best
I
way
want
to
to
put
ask
it.
you about something that's kind of. This is a big part where the music swells. There's a part in the movie. Me and John were saying there's really no like super dramatic parts of the movie where everything's unrealistic, and there's not. But there is one part of the movie that I would say is the climax. Everything finally clicks and goes right, and
Yeah,
that is
the home
when
run.
Hatterberg hits the home run to
Set the
save
record.
the A's from the Royals coming back, and they set the record, and it's a very emotional moment.
Yeah.
I know you like that part.
Well,
so
I'm
let's
glad
just-
you brought it up because that's my favorite scene of the movie for multiple reasons. One of the reasons is that I love Hatterberg's character.
He is a good character.
It's not